the changes that happened this week, we've got a list of them. I think caching the playlist and caching the MP3 was kind of like the most, well, what am I going to say, like the biggest stride towards getting us towards like a releasable kind of like done version 1 type thing. That's the thing that we kept talking about week after week after week. So yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about how that works?
Sure. So there's two things, right? Two sides. The first thing I did was make sure that the queue, so everything that we select and we added to listen to later, that gets saved, right? So from now on, anything you click, as soon as you've added that there, it will stay there until you manually remove it, right? So you can actually close the tab or even just close the whole browser. You can restart the browser, you can do whatever you want, and when you go back, you just get to see the exact same queue that you had before. And this works on mobile as well, so it just works all over the place. And I did it in a clever way using middleware. And what that does is it will intercept any message I try to send to Redux, and any message that is to do with the player. So any interaction with the player, like sorting, moving to top, dragging, all of that stuff. I will intercept those messages, and I will actually save a snapshot of what the queue looks like at that moment. So then even if you start playing something and you drag it down, and that drag's going to be there if you close the app and go back, right? So all of that is persisted. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Is middleware like a React kind of built-in type concept, or is that like a third party?
Yeah, so middleware is the React concept. And then you have lots of libraries to work with middleware, right? So for example, Redux Saga, when you want to do side effects and different things, that's all using the middleware concept, but that is a concept that Redux itself has.
Really nice.
Yeah, it works really well.
And you mentioned it grabs the MP3 too. I know there was some kind of some cores issues that we have with that cross origin. How'd you end up getting around those?
Yeah, so that's the second caching thing I did. So the first one was just the queue, and there was no MP3s involved there. It was just the actual queue object. And the next one was the actual MP3s, right? So what we always talked about is we wanted to be able to save MP3s, so even when we disconnect, we can still listen to our queued podcast, right? So yeah, the first issue I encountered, I was just playing around in the console and trying to do some fetching, and obviously I came up across some course issues, which is cross-origin issues, right? So the problem with this is this happens when the server itself is not allowing your origin to fetch from it, right? So usually you never have these issues when you're curling, for example, in the terminal, or when you're using a server, but if you're using a browser, then you have an origin, and that origin needs to match whatever the server allows, right? So usually the way to fix this is the server would need to allow star, so allow every origin. But obviously we don't manage those servers, so we cannot just go in and fix them, right? We have lots of different feeds that we get stuff from, so it wasn't the solution to go and ask them to change the servers. Instead, what I did was I proxied every request that we make for an MP3 through a no course or a course anywhere proxy. And what that does is it will intercept that request for you through a server, so there's no course involved, and then it will actually give you the same request with your origin allowed, right? With any origin allowed. And that allowed me then to fetch things from the QIT itself. And once that's fetched, you can do anything with it, right? So what I did was I did more middleware, because I'm addicted to middleware apparently now. And I'm intercepting. So if at any point an item is added to the queue, then at that time I'll intercept that request, and I will also cache the URL for that episode. And then if at any point an episode is removed from the queue, so that's when an episode maybe finishes playing and then it gets removed, or when you just remove it manually. So anything that you do to remove an episode, that will also trigger the MP3 that you cache to be removed from the cache.
That's really freaking cool. And I want to mention too that the scrubber is back, so now you can kind of drag the timeline, and that's something that we lost when we ditched showing the HTML5 audio player there. And I actually looked at the code. I kind of took it for granted that there was some sort of hey, bind this line up to this scrubber. But I looked at the code; it was actually really involved to kind of figure out what to do, and it works just like you would expect. I never would have guessed that it was kind of custom coded. So I know Ben did a great job on that. It's funny, between those two features, that those two things eliminated most of my problems with trying to actually use the app. There was a time when I got to around minute 39 in a podcast, and then like got out of the car, did something, ended up closing it, and came back, and I was like, oh, I gotta skip 30 seconds to get back, which is terrible. So between those two, like it's fixed. Like I think that and the timing speed, which came in like last week, like it's working to me.
Yeah, and I keep expecting things to break, like because we build so many custom things. But now when I added the caching, for example, one of the things I did is let's play with the scrubber and let's try like scrubbing like all the way forward and back again, then in the middle, and it doesn't break. Yep. which is awesome. Yeah.
And that actually leads us really nicely into the next topic with automated testing. So I set up a little bit of stuff with Jest and Enzyme, but I just did a couple examples just to kind of make sure it was working. But really, the star of the show there was Cypress. So, Dave, you want to tell us a little bit about like what you did with Cypress?
Well, it's a end-to-end testing tool, and everyone's talking about it. So I thought it may be a good thing to try out, and working with this project, I thought it'd be a good, something fun to do too. So, it's a really cool project. It's very easy to set up. It didn't take much time at all to set up. The only issues I really ran on with setup was just, I found one bug in the code, excuse me, which I just assumed it was something I set up wrong with Cypress. So, but it really was actually a problem with the code, and so
sorry,
that's all right. It's a one character fix, so we got that out of the way. But it's a really neat system. You can instruct it to walk around your site, and it uses the CSS style selectors to grab onto stuff, and then you can click it or interact with it or look at the contents of it. And I think the really nice part about the whole thing is that all of their API calls and things are doing the waiting and the timeouts all internally, and so you really don't have any need to put like wait for a second here, wait for a half second here, because it's all just built in. And by having it all built in, it just it even runs faster, because once it sees it, it stops the waiting, and then it continues on. So, and it has been pretty reliable.
Have you done work with things like Selenium in the past, or how'd you get interested in end-to-end tests?
Well, I've used Selenium a little bit in the past, and we do use it in a product at work, but I haven't worked a ton with it. We do some end-to-end testing in a kind of a custom setup at work, and it's a project that dates back to the early 90s that's still going in the testing framework. It's changed a little bit over the years, but it's in that framework you're using expect. I don't know if you guys ever use expect. It's like a tool that can read the terminal text, and it waits for prompts, and then so that the testing tool sort of is looking at a text-based console, and then it's inputting data into that console. So it's like the API to get the messages into the system is a text console. So we're driving the test console with expect to do it, and then it's going into this complicated system that a lot of that complicated system we don't build, and is very dependent on the hardware you're running it on. And so it's very much like run all the tests, and then something will break, and then a lot of times it's just put in like a little tiny sleep here, a little tiny sleep there. And so every release cycle, there's like a mini battle with all those, with all that, to make sure that for the test setup that we're running, everything goes smooth, because the customer doesn't want to see, random errors all over the place, and then rerunning the same test like 8 times to prove, or 10 times to prove that it only fails like once every so many times. So
right, like it works once, ship it.
Yeah, and it's not a problem. It's just really just overdriving it, but it can be hard to explain that to non-technical people. So we've done. I've worked with it a little bit, but I've never worked with a JavaScript one before, really. I mean, just barely with Selenium. But
Yeah, to me it looks like it's a very different experience. Like Selenium, the stuff that I've done with it, it always felt like kind of here's your browser, go figure out what you need to tell Selenium to do. But it felt like two kind of separate entities. But with Cypress, like it's really integrated really nicely. And I guess they've got that Electron app. So like you kind of mentioned to me earlier this week, like you'd actually kind of fire up the app, write the tests, kind of click through, and then do things like actually, since you've got the site kind of up on the window there, you can open the console and do some inspecting and things, and it actually it will do things like suggest selectors for you if you like go hover over a button or whatever, or click the little inspector like inside the actual tool itself. It's really tightly and nicely integrated.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff there. It also, one of the things I really like is that, you kind of mentioned it without directly mentioning it, but after your tests all run, it leaves the environment up. So you're actually in that environment where your test code is running, and then that's where you can do all these selector and pattern matching, or even just typing in another search, or interacting with the GUI, going to completely different screens. And at that time, you can then move it to the next screen, then look at your selectors. They call it a selector playground, I think is the term. And I didn't know that was there at the beginning, and so I was trying to, use my very poor selector knowledge to grab things, and it was just like, it's got a lot easier with using the tool to do it.
So how does that work? Does that produce reliable selectors, or?
For the most part, it does. You go into like a selector mode, and then you can just take your cursor around the screen to the element that you want to do, and then you click on it. And then it actually will write the get command up at the top of the screen, and then it has a button, a copy button. You can hit the copy button, and then you paste it right into your code. And it just depends on how well your app is written, to if you want to actually use that selector. But at least for just the first cut at your test, it's really good because it will match that thing. But with this particular app, a lot of the class names and IDs are, I guess they're being auto-generated.
Dynamically generated, yeah. Compile time.
Yeah, so those don't work very well, but you can use those at least to get started. So I did add some data attributes so that it was easier to click the buttons.
Yeah, I like those data attributes too, because it kind of separates like the look and feel from the operation. So it's always kind of weird to be like, click, like use your selector might be like button primary or button red or something. It just seemed like weird to like tell it to go click the red button rather than something that's tied to the functionality.
Yeah, I got that from the Cypress docs, which are very good, and it was like that was their suggestion and reasoning was the CSS and the JavaScript. Try to get yourself away from the look and the feel and go to these other markers. Now, I put them on like the add the queue button and the remove to the queue button and the drag button, and I just put the same term completely on it. So it still could be a little hard to get to, like if you wanted to click the 5th add to queue button down, but I'm not quite sure. I'm sure you could do that somehow, but I decided just to click the first one and then all of them is how I wrote the test, because you can actually click all of them that match that tag with another flag. So you can match every single button on the screen and then have it click it, and it will sequentially loop through them and click them for you. So.
Okay. I was thinking, this is just me thinking out loud now, but if we do it with episodes, so if each episode card has its own number, so like episode 1, that in the data attributes, then you can just select that and then select the child that has the playlist button of episode 5, right? So you could go about it that way as well. But
yeah,
I would think.
Yeah, there could be some better ways to do it. But I don't have like a really good plan as to like what to test and what the functionality to test. So I just try to start with the easiest things, and the easiest thing was just make a search, and then it was like, okay, so we got to add them to the queue and then remove them from the queue. But yeah, I think there's so some better planning. I think this is one of those points where you want to plan for testing while you're making the system, to think about how you want to test it, where you can grab it. And so now that we know a little bit more about Cypress, we could probably apply some of that stuff back into the code.
Oh, you've written a lot of stuff. I feel safer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. The Cypress code itself, like the code that you write, is really elegant. Because like I remember working in Selenium when we do stuff like if I was going to click 5 things in a row, I'd be like, click defer 100, click and say like some weird callback cycle set timeout. You know, I'm sure there are maybe more better ways of doing that too. But it just seems like Cypress is like really streamlined and it's kind of designed for like doing things nowadays, which is really great.
Yeah, I did try to click like maybe like 35 buttons on the screen, and it did crap out about 25, or it just timed out. And I don't know if that was something our app did, or if it went into this where it would need to scroll.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure, because it doesn't like to act on things that aren't visible. Is what I've seen.
Okay.
Like I think that's a choice it made, maybe.
Makes sense, right? Because if you're pretending to be a user, then you need to scroll before you can see that stuff, I guess.
Right. So I don't know. So that was one of the reasons why I made a stubbed data set return that only just has 6 elements in it, and so that would be more reliable just to add 6, because we're not trying to write a stress test, we're trying to write a a functional test. So.
Yeah. So like, what's nice about that is we've got we're up to 10 contributors now, and it's really hard to kind of view that stuff, and especially as like we've got a long build process right now, which we'll talk about here in a sec. Like if somebody merges something in like right after my test passed, then I've got to wait for like another 10 minutes until the test run. And so, like me as a person, like it's kind of hard to verify, like, okay, did these changes go in? Did they break anything? Like I'm not pulling everything out. It's moving too fast to really test that stuff out manually. So we're really relying on that automation to catch stuff. So if somebody breaks like, the playback speed or whatever, which happened, then we want to catch that stuff sooner and, potentially block it. So I definitely want to spend a lot of time adding more tests, both the unit with just the Enzyme and also the Cypress stuff. So that's definitely, like an area I want to focus on. I just keep doing other things. See how that goes.
Yeah, and Vlad has it tied in, or we did some work last night. I did the easy piece, he did the hard piece, and we have it tied in to the TravisCI build. And so, which was great until the one test that we have that's having a problem broke, and then you can't debug it through Cypress because you can't get any artifacts. So then we set up the Cypress Dashboard, which is another cool tool that they give to you, and which and since we're open source, we get to use all the cool tools. It's not like when I'm at work and I see, not for commercial use, and I have to do something else.
All right.
But
to run through accounting.
Yeah. Which that's the crapshoot. But it's that thing's pretty cool, because you set up a record flag on the Travis build, and then it actually just transmits all of the test results over to Cypress's dashboard, which they host, and then you can see all the steps, what passed, what didn't pass. If it fails, it takes snapshots. You can see that on there, and then even when it passes, it records it into a video, an MP4.
That's amazing.
And you can watch it right in the browser. So when Vlad was testing it through Cypress, I could watch on Travis to see, the console there, and then I was also watching it on the Cypress dashboard, and I could see each test run. And when the test didn't run, I could click a button and say, "Yep, it's for some reason it's not using my stub out of fetch, and it's going to the real server when it's pulling, and that's why it has the wrong results, and it failed," which we think's a caching problem. But Vlad might have fixed that this morning another way, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. But it's pretty nice just to be able to collaborate in that way.
Yeah, for sure. And there are a ton of files that gets pulled down with Cypress, which has been some of the build problems we've been having. So I think it's like taking around 10 minutes for a build right now. So if you've got 5 builds and we've got really nice pre-commit and PR merging kind of checks going on, then things get backed up really quickly. So Vladimir's been doing a lot of really cool stuff around that, and we're going to not talk about that today. He's going to be on next week, so I want to kind of bring that up with him and talk about some of the options and things that we're doing to address that. I did also want to mention issue templates. So Sung called me out on writing terrible tickets, which I've been absolutely doing. And going back through and like looking, like I'm seeing typos and stuff, and like I'm so bad at type. Like I switched to Android like now it's like 7 months ago, so I have no excuses. But my typos have just been terrible because it just doesn't do what I'm expecting after using iPhone for so many years. So I've been going through tickets today, and I finally set up a milestone, and I called it version 1. You know, that's debatable as what we want to call it, whatever. But we got a couple reasons for wanting a version number. Like it'd be nice to be able to see something in a screenshot if someone sends this error. We can see it's like v1 dot whatever. Makes it easier to talk about or send it out. And like I brought it up a couple of meetups and stuff, so it's like I'm not real sure on like what to tell people. Like, is this done? Is this whatever? So I created a basic milestone, and I kind of dragged some stuff in there. I think everyone has the power to kind of move that stuff out, and so it's all fluid. But I thought it was interesting, and Sung created those issue templates. So I'm going back through now and actually like writing better tickets and stuff, because a lot of these tickets, like I'm coming back to weeks later, and I don't remember, especially with the typos. Like, this doesn't even make sense.
Can you apply the template after you've like on a previously created ticket?
No, it kind of just like puts default text in there for you, so it's kind of like giving hints. So there's no enforcement. You know, it's not like a little buckets or anything. You can still kind of delete it and type whatever you want.
So you could grab those tags and put it on an old one then if you wanted to.
That's right.
Yeah. We should stick to the same stuff, I guess. So about the milestone. So do we have anything missing to go to V1? You think, or?
That's a good question. I don't know what you guys think. Like, I definitely want to. I feel like the testing needs to be up a little bit more, but really, as far as the users are concerned, like that, you know, that's a question. Like, who's the version number for? Is it for the users or is it for us?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's for a bit of everything, right? Because like you said, one of the points of having the version is to have that version at the bottom of the screen, and when they send us a screenshot, we can know. Or for example, today, Sung was asking me about why isn't the cache working, and it turns out he was just using an older version of the app. Right. So it does help us as devs a lot as well, right?
Yeah, I did. I think I had a badly written ticket in there for like an about kind of page. Like I think it'd be nice to be able to click somewhere on the app and like be able to see the version number, and also have like maybe some buttons for like clear cache or you know, even just having a link to GitHub, stuff like that. And so I think that is one of the things that we want to get in there for like a version 1. But I think that's going to be really minor. It's just a matter of figuring out where to put the link to kind of open up a menu or something, or maybe just take it straight to.
Yeah. So we're almost ready then.
Yeah, I think so. And then there's a lot of tickets. It feels weird to kind of move other people's tickets and milestones or whatever, so I don't know what to do. There's only one milestone set up. I thought about making MVP and putting some older ones there. I thought about putting like a VNext kind of thing, whatever. But really, like anyone can work on whatever they want. Like this is open source. Like, you know, you should do what you feel inspired to do. I like the milestone thing isn't a this is what needs to happen next. It's just like a hey, this is what we think needs to happen to say it's V1.
Well, but it gives you a good chance though to like, if we're going to do V2, these need to be done. So a lot of times when people look at the tickets, they might pick one because it would progress the project just alone. So
yeah,
it'll be good. I think it would be good to get a milestone created for the release after this release.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that.
But I don't know who gets to choose what goes in it, but
I figure like everyone in the channel's got a lot of opinions. Like we definitely, so you know, hopefully nobody feels like they have to hold their tongue, or you know, if they disagree with something, they have to keep quiet about it. Like it's trying to be very kind of open about everything and just like letting chaos reign. So hopefully, if I put something in and somebody disagrees with it, they'll yell or move it out or whatever.
Yeah, no, but it's good to have that debate, right? And it's good that we all like trust each other enough to sort of be outspoken about these things, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? So we have different ideas, we have disagreements, and then sometimes we even change each other's minds, and that's a great thing.
Yep. And I don't want to have like a 15-minute discussion about every ticket, like which is, you know, like, I've already got a day job, right? I don't need another one of those. So.
Yeah, I think we should. We need to start doing stand-ups every morning. And then we need sprints. Yeah. Burn down charts.
That's right. Oh man. But hey, maybe we get PTO though, right? That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really, I think that's about it for kind of what I had to talk about. We talked about the problems. I think for what's next, I think really figuring out that milestone. We've got those tickets kind of arranged there, so that kind of tells you what. I think the about page is the only like kind of missing feature, and I did throw a couple of bug fixes in there and a couple of minor things. So I was really going to just work on kind of getting the test coverage up. And I don't know if Cypress has the notion of like test coverage. It seems I don't think they could.
No, it doesn't. They have a page that talks about that, about how hard it is to do at that level, and they just recommend not doing it.
Yeah, so maybe I could just kind of take a rough stab at like kind of creating a ticket in that V1 milestone for like, here are the things that I think should be covered, and then I could kind of like strike through or whatever. Because I definitely want to get some hands-on time, just like kind of learning Cypress because it looks so freaking cool.
Yeah, it is pretty nice. If you want to jump in somewhere, you could probably write a test for that audio player.
Okay.
That'd be a good place to do like, play one, stop one. I don't know what support it really has for audio elements, or like if it can detect if audio is actually playing, but you can at least click the buttons and things. I don't know how to do that part.
I know there's a couple things we can do to cheat, like it'll change like the icon of the play button and stuff. So like even if we can't check the audio, we should be able to at least check that the image changed and kind of trust that it'll do its thing. And sometimes I've noticed like I end up clicking on a lot of technical developers episodes, which I don't know where he hosts, but I'm guessing it's Wales because it seems like there's like a 2-second delay before it starts playing compared to somewhere else. So, depending on which podcast you're clicking from where, it could take longer. So that's something where I think we'd have to have some sort of deferred. I doubt like Cypress has built-in support for playing audio.
Yeah,
well, maybe they do.
Yeah, unless the MP3 is cached offline, right?
Right, that's right.
Yeah, and I'm curious how that cache is going to play out too with the end-to-end test because it's just more stuff storing down on your computer that maybe you're not expecting. And so like if I add a bunch of stuff to the queue and then I close out my testing and then I start the next testing, is all that stuff going to be in there? So we'll have to see. It's supposedly doing some browser cache between every run, but I've seen some things that seem like they're still sticking around.
Yeah, I wonder about that. And two, we got to be careful with like downloading MP3s because like if we download the same like Talk Python to Me episode, like one of these days they're going to go into their stats and be like, "What the heck? This episode has like 3,000 more downloads than every other one."
Right. So probably you should try to write a route that will stub and then return back something else. Maybe so maybe you want to put a test MP3 into the repo and then intercept the real outgoing. I don't know how what does it do when it grabs like the MP3?
So what I'm doing right now is first of all fetching the MP3 as a blob of data. And once I have access to that blob of data, then I can put it in the cache and so you can add stuff in the cache, and with adding, you don't have a choice. You just like give it a URL and it will do everything for you. But if you do put, then you can tell it the key, so essentially the URL that you're trying to cache, and then the response that you want to provide. And so what I'm doing is that I'm giving it the URL of the MP3 podcast, and then as a response, I'm giving it that fetched blob that I got. So we could, like you say, I guess we could have a fallback MP3 that we have there, like a tiny 5-second thing. And
in the search results, when it comes back with all the information for an episode, it has the link to where it's actually going to fetch the.
So each episode is.
Okay.
Yeah, each episode, amongst other things, it has the audio URL, so I'm using that to cache this.
So Joe, you're going to have to intercept both of those, I think, and then return back the MP3 that's somewhere else.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Something like that. It's like, like you're going to need maybe two different routes, or something along those lines.
That'd be like a nice couch ticket. Like put it on TV show or something and just kind of tinker with stuff and try to get it working.
Yeah, you can and then you can let it go to the real site, to start too, just to, maybe don't start with the fetch or the stubbing of the fetch first. Yeah,
I might start with like just a real dead simple kind of thing, and then try to get there. Like if I get the about page in there, like maybe I could start with that, just as it's like kind of simple, like hey, that work, and then try the audio subsystem.
Yeah, I tried to.
Go ahead.
Well, I tried to. I tried to do the drag to sort, and I thought that would be really easy because I found this page on their Cypress website that says this is how you do it, and then after an hour and a half later, I gave up. So sometimes even if it sounds easy, it might not be.
No, yeah. I was thinking about the issue with the cache, and really what the service worker and the cache do is that they will work per website, right? So I guess if we're testing in a different environment, because you said where we test in Electron, or it's not the same browser environment that the website uses, right? So I don't know if there will be a conflict and like everything will remain saved in there, or it will just break everything down when it's done testing, and that's it.
Right. Yeah, I think what it's doing, Cypress is wrapping it inside its Electron app into like some sort of like an iframe type thing, and then it's running Chrome inside that somehow. It's sort of like getting into the black magic area, but
yeah, because it could be a different instance of Chrome, and in which case it wouldn't conflict with whatever the user or whatever we have as actual website data.
Yeah, I think it's picking up the current user, or at least when I'm running it on my computer, it's still coming back as a Dave user and grabbing stuff out of Dave's environment, I think.
Okay.
But it's really hard to know where it's doing what. Sort of if we had that Cypress, if we could get someone, if just happened to know if somebody knew someone from Cypress.
Yeah, I'll see if we can get somebody on here, like blackmail or something.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. But we went way over time again. Pretty much everything I do ends up over time. But I really appreciate you guys hopping on. It's really exciting, and I feel like I'm like riding it, holding on to a speeding train. Like
we're moving fast. That's true.
Yeah, it's amazing now. So thank you very much, guys.
Take care.
Bye.